Hola a todos. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Crespect Talk. I am Felipe Mohando, Director of Partnerships at Crespect. We have just started the new year, and to hit the ground running, we would like to explore what has happened last year and how we see the future in a very diverse and dynamic region like Latin America. Of course, talking about our favorite topic, legal tech. Today, I am happy to talk to our friend, academic, dispute resolution, and legal tech guru Nicolás Lozada Pimiento about the latest trends and perspective of legal tech in Latin America and specifically in Colombia, that is his country of origin. Although it will be Nicolás and myself on air, we very much welcome your questions and perspectives that you can post in the comment section below. In particular, we would love to hear about your own thoughts about how your experience has been last year and what your predictions for this new year that we have started would be, both for Latin America and your own markets, wherever you happen to be seeing us from. With that, let me welcome our friend Nicolás. Hola, Nico, ¿qué tal? Thank you, Nico, for coming and joining us for this conversation. Welcome to Crespect Talks.
Thank you so much. It's an honor, and it's also a huge delight to be with you. You've been a friend for over 15 years, and the fact that we're talking in this more professional way, it makes me very proud and very happy.
Yeah, well, we go personally quite a long way with Nico. We were classmates in Singapore, and yeah. So, but my life brought me to Europe and to let's say to Estonia and so on, and then through legal tech we are together again. So that's very nice. Thank you for coming to talk with us and with the audience of Crespect. Um, Let me go a little bit into your background. Maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit.
Yes, absolutely, Pipe. So what happened? We did study together our masters. So I'm a Colombian lawyer, and then I went for my masters in Singapore along with you and a lot of really bright minds around the world. And that really opened my mind. That opened me many ways and perspectives. So I ended up working first as a lawyer for over 10 years. So I was very much a lawyer at the WTO, at law firms like Freshfields, and at the government, Colombian government, including the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Trade. But later on, as time passed, I get this little bug, the technology bug. When I was working at the Ministry of Justice, there was this initiative on online arbitration. We were issuing the new arbitration law in Colombia, and the debate was whether it was lawful to use technology and how it should be used. So I was working the drafting of an article that dealt with that, but I really want to do more and I want to explore more. So I ended up being a delegate for Colombia at the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, which brought me to the group 3, which is online dispute resolution. So that opened my mind to the ODR world, the online dispute resolution world. And I started working on it first as an academic, and I was also being a associate professor at External University. And so I continued working on that first as a professor, then as a consultant. I was part of a group of academics involved in the issuing of ODR initiatives. And I ended up opening REDEC in 2021 in the middle of the pandemic. One of the mentors I have met back then, back at the Ancitral, was Colin Rule, who's basically the father of ODR. And I said, like, you should do this in Latin America. That's an unexplored market. You should go for it. So very shyly, still working as a lawyer, I opened up shop with REDEC, which basically means Resolución Electrónica de Conflictos, like online dispute resolution, but in Spanish, with a K at the end, just to sound cool. But so REDEC is basically ODR applied to Latin America. And that's what we've been doing for the last 3 years already. And I've been very happy to do this. And it's getting more resonance. It's people are getting really excited about it. So I'm really happy about it.
Right, right. So, which brings us to the purpose of this talk. So, um, how would you describe the current state of legal tech in Latin America, and what distinguishes it from other regions?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question, Pipe. I believe people in Latin America are very eager to get to know more about legal tech. It's not so much about applying it, but it's a process. So, but yeah, during COVID times, there was a group of academics and practitioners in Colombia, and also some startups that wanted to uh, get to know more about basically legal tech, and we opened the Colombian Legal Tech Association. I was very also privileged to be a part of the first board of directors, and we were also really into into spreading the knowledge, into spreading the news of legal tech, because that was something foreign to us. That was something that was going on in the US. But during the pandemic, everyone was at home, right? And everyone was using a computer. And all lawyers said, I have to start using technology. If not, I will just go
Hmm.
market. So what we discovered when we started out in 2020, that was right before I opened up Reddick. What we found out is that people don't know much about it. Like we in Colombia, but I would say also in Latin America, we are formed in a very traditional manner. So we don't have um, our our breathing as lawyers is not different from what it was back, 2,000 years ago with the Roman. And we do study Roman law, and it's a lot of like memory and not so much about like really being practical about the legal applications. So we found out that that was a real need for lawyers in Colombia. So I think we now have over 300 members, and
Hmm.
know about this. So and then the second part of your question, and it's how can you distinguish it from other regions? What I would say
Right.
is
So just let me stop you right there. So so that was back in 2020, right? So that there was a lot of hype and so on. But as the COVID, let's say, crisis faded, right? Has this interest and has it faded as well, or has kept high? Like particularly last year, 2024, has legal tech been in still like in a hype or?
it is still so what happened in Colombia, and I think in quite a few other Latin American countries, is that they actually got the good news of technology and how it was actually useful for lawyers. So COVID was an excuse for people to get this abrupt change and this abrupt integration into technology.
Mhm,
But later in Colombia, we issued a law on digital justice. We issued laws on
mhm,
regulations on the correct application of artificial intelligence. We started to discuss it in many contexts, like several including like governmental, of course, but also for practitioners, and also for the justice, the Superior Council of the Judiciary in Colombia. It's been talking about digital justice for 3 or 4 years already. So yes, the trend is on the hype. So we
mhm,
are still trying to get to know more about this. But now, since I opened up this company, the Reddick is at the very beginning. Even though everyone was talking about it, everyone was still afraid about it. So
mm,
everyone. So this is really cool. Go ahead. That was the message I was getting. So from arbitration centers, from companies, from banks, because I was pitching all over the place, and they were saying, "Oh, that's really cool. Go for it." And so because they were afraid, for instance, that they will lose their jobs and that will not be a correct fit culturally for corporations,
mhm,
that some of the external lawyers of corporations were objecting any legal transformation initiative. So it was not easy at the very beginning. So I would say that this um, um, capacity building that we were doing with the Guild of Lawyers was extremely useful for them to start to lose this um, fear of,
Mm-hmm.
we call it misoneism. I don't know how to translate that into English. Like the fear to what's new, and
Mm-hmm.
so we've been fighting against that for the last 3 years, and I would say 2024, it's been the year where people said, okay, let's do it, let's risk it.
Mm-hmm.
2 years of getting to know more about this and saying like it's not that bad. We're not going to lose our jobs, so people are more relaxed.
Right.
But then getting to your first question on how that's different from the US and Europe, particularly, I would say that Europe is extremely conservative, at least from
Mm-hmm.
my perspective. They're very conservative and they're over-regulating technology and technology law, which I believe it's counterproductive. I've been getting in touch with you and with many other experts on technology in Europe, and I still perceive that fear. So the fear
Mm-hmm.
that for 2 years in Latin America, I still perceive it in Europe. The US is something different. Like the US, they are really into legal technology and they have success experience in legal technology, but the US is extremely diverse. Like you can go to
Mm-hmm.
Silicon one thing, but then if you go to Milwaukee, that's an entirely different thing. So you have aspects where the US can be more conservative than Latin America, and of course aspects that they're 2,000 years. So it's very it's not it's kind of unbalanced, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Okay.
here. Latin America, we're
Okay.
going, but yes, that would be the difference to me.
Wow, that's very very interesting that you are mentioning. So, which brings me so like this difference between like the different speeds. We see it also here in Europe. How some regions are very advanced, some others are very conservative, and some of the ones that used to be conservative are like now trying to run to catch up, right? And at the same time, you have like the overarching EU regulation on top that is like shaking things. That's very interesting insight. So going into particularly like the let's say the angle of like justice, right, in the middle of this regulation, right, and you being an expert in legal tech with justice. So how is legal tech being leveraged in Colombia right now and across Latin America to improve access to justice, right, for underserved populations in particular, which I think that was one of the recurring themes in for ages in Latin America, like how to like bring justice closer to underserved populations, and how this is being managed with new technologies like the ones that Radek is about.
PP, I believe that's the question
Mm,
for us in Latin America. Digital justice for me, it's been an obsession for over 12 years. So when I started to work at the Ministry of Justice, well, it was all about access to justice.
mm,
The General Code of Procedure, which was also issued in 2012, when I was working at the Ministry of Justice, they had these several articles on, we're gonna use the technology to leverage our resources to get better access to justice. But that was just a promise because there was no political willingness to make it happen.
mm,
So we had to wait up until COVID, and then COVID forced us basically to start to use basic technology. I mean, like Zoom
mm,
or email, uh, like something as simple as sending documents by email was some sort of taboo before COVID. But since COVID forced us to do it, people started to talk about this, and then, as I mentioned before, the Colombian legislation got adapted to it through law 2123 of 2022, which basically said we're gonna use any particular tool, like a technological tool, for those purposes. So I saw that huge difference in approach, at least. Uh,
mm,
but you started to use it. But um, I still believe it's a promise, and particularly for underserved populations.
Mm-hmm.
Because and then I've been studying this for Colombia for 10 years, but in terms of Latin America, I would say changing is not easy to begin with, and there are a lot of interests like uh, even economic, political,
Mm-hmm.
sociological. There are many interests around this, and then you will find some people that they want justice to be the way it is, even if for underserved population. So it does not favor some political, some ideological interest. Um, it's not so much about the digital bridge. That's always the excuse. Oh no, we didn't have enough access to internet. People, I'm now in the middle of Cundinamarca, which is, it's 3 hours from Bogota, and I'm having perfect internet connection. So I believe it's not so much about that. It's a lot more about some people may want to justice to be served in 12, 15, 20 years, because
Mm-hmm.
that so I believe we have to be bold about it, and we have to be open and transparent about the situation. And
Mm-hmm.
then, even though you may have excellent legislation, even though you have the best technology available, even though you have perfect internet connection, you still need to have people um, making the correct bet to having digital justice fully adopted in our context. And I believe that's what's going on. So
Mm-hmm.
we always listen to people saying, "Oh, it's we don't have internet access. We live in the jungle," because that's the usual excuse for Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
We live in the jungle. There's no justice. It's not so much about that.
Wow.
You have deeper, and yeah, I mean that there are some things that I can't control. I've been trying to work with the judicial authorities in for 4 years already. Even before Redec, I was trying to work with them, and I haven't been able to, uh, even though I offered like things for free. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not so much that they can't or they didn't have the proper regulation. It's that
Mm-hmm.
for digital justice in particular, it's much about the speech. It's not about the political discourse about we want to promote digital justice, but yeah, del dicho al hecho, we have this saying in Spanish. There's
Mm-hmm.
a way between what you say and what's done, and
Yeah.
I believe what happened with digital justice.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So a lot of challenges regarding access to justice still, and particularly having to do with mindset and with political interests. Right. So which brings me to the next question. So you talked about challenges for giving access to justice, but how about just challenges for law firms for adopting technology, like even taking these political issues aside. So what are the biggest challenges that law firms you see are having when adopting legal tech solutions in Latin America, and how do you think that they should be or could be overcome?
That's also a very good question, Pipa. I believe there are three main challenges, the way I see
Mm,
them for law firms. Um, the first one is it's easy, it's budget. So law firms in Latin America don't have the same budgets American law firms or perhaps European law firms too. So that's a huge difference to begin with. So the budget a law firm, even a big one, I mean, big law firm in Colombia, it's like 50 lawyers, right? It's not that big,
mm-hmm,
but the budget that a this can allocate for technology is small because they have this very traditional business model, and they spend a lot of money in human resources.
mm-hmm,
So I don't know, over 60 or 70% of the budget of a law firm goes into paying lawyers, right? So that's one thing. And I've spoken to a few of the biggest law firms in Colombia, and they are very enthusiastic. But then when we went to the highest decision makers, the stakeholders, we got a no for an answer. And at least what they told us was not sufficient budget. It's too hard for us to start spending, I don't know, $1,000 per month on a technological solution. So that's the first level. I would say the second level is more about eh, the culture. It's a cultural adaptation. So people do like technology, as I mentioned before. So people are excited about this, and they, for instance, they belong to the Colombian Association of Legal Tech. But then when it comes to really putting it in place, it can actually affect their own interest, because there may be in the law firm's interest to charge a lot of billable hours, or to charge higher fees for their work. And since technology can make that more efficient, and may lower the costs, they will say, okay, maybe that's not for us.
Mhm.
um, and that brings me to the third level, which at the end of the day, it's the business model itself. The business model for law firms, it's built upon a different, mindset, a different construct.
Mhm.
And I mentioned before that this is this goes a long way, like, perhaps thousands of years of, people educating lawyers and becoming lawyers and practicing as lawyers. So, um, and that I would say that's the hardest part of the work, trying to get people to really change their business model and change.
Mhm.
And that's something I do admire from law firms in the U.S. Some law firms in the U.S. have taken steps interesting towards really getting into the technological era. Um, Even though they have to change their business model. And I've seen some interesting things, for instance, in Foley Hoag in the US. And well, the law firms who are adapting, I think DLA Piper is also having Harvey, and
Mhm.
the IBM Ross. That was also a partnership with, I don't know, one of the big law firms in the US. That's something, right? And they have the budgets for it, right? And they're not gonna lose their business model. But it's interesting that at least they're trying to go further. So to be fully honest with you, and to conclude, Pipe, I will say that um, law firms in Colombia, and I would say in Latin America, um, they're still lag behind, and I haven't worked with law firms
Mhm.
yet, um,
Mhm.
because I found it easier even to work with public agencies, like with the government, than is to work with law firms. And I will say, that you will have to change their mindset fully
Mhm.
first, to change their economic incentives in order to have
Right.
fully adapt
Which,
digital
yeah, which
transformation.
is very interesting because like I mean, like there has been a lot of, let's say, developments, particularly here in Europe, in terms of like some of the law firms like being like at the edge, right? So at the leading edge and investing a lot in AI and new technologies and legal tech and so on. And then uh, the let's say some others that are kind of like mid-tier now they are trying to rush to catch up, right? But there's in the background there's also the force, a force that I don't see that you mentioned, and I would be very curious to ask you about, which is the client pressure for lower fees and for more efficient work, right? So there has been a quite significant shift in that I have perceived in the US and the European market, that to have lower fees, to be more efficient, to have things faster. Uh, and I'm curious, like if that kind of pressure is not felt in Latin America so much, and why would that be?
I might be speculating here, but my understanding, because I don't work at a Colombian law firm, so I cannot say that for certain. But my my hunch, I would say, it's that uh, our market is not that sophisticated yet.
Mhm.
So a few big law firms, like over 50 lawyers, and they're not that many. I would say in Colombia, 15, 20. I don't think they're much more than that. So I believe that they are still in their comfort zone, that they
Mhm.
can still big. So big corporations will only pay big law firms. That's a given, because they have also some incentives and some um, and they would rather go for whatever an American law firm
Mhm.
rather than a Colombian firm, just because it's an American law firm, not because it's good or they have the best lawyers.
Mhm.
They just feel comfortable. So my belief is that their business model hasn't been challenged yet, because they
Mhm.
have their clients, right? So
Mhm.
they can still work with them and nothing's going to happen to their business model as it is. Actually, they'll have the opposite incentive not to do legal transformation,
Mm.
because they would like to charge more. And since they can do it, since they have this niche market of big foreign corporations and international investors, well, why should they, right? So
Mhm.
that's what I perceived. I was pitching a big law firm in Colombia for 6 months, and then we went through many levels of decision making. And what we found out at the very end is that they just didn't want to. Of
Mhm.
course, I budget, but they do have. I mean, I think I don't know. I don't
Right.
own that firm, but it wasn't that much money. They were not going to go bankrupt. But yeah, so they were comfortable. So I believe law firms in Latin America, or that's at least my speculation, they're still in their comfort zone, and they can continue with it. They don't have the pressures American or European law firms have,
Okay.
which are
Yes.
developed and a lot more sophisticated. And there's a lot more competition. So a big corporation in the US
Mhm.
may have 20 or 30 or 50 law firms to choose from. Whereas in Latin America, in Colombia, if they want to go to big ones or international ones, they have like five. So it's not that easy
Right.
for
Right. Right.
for-
Well, which means that there could be a potentiality for a very lean and efficient law firm to take over the market if they have the, let's say, the sufficient backing. So there's a what I am hearing from you is like that there could be a potential for a disruption in the market very, very soon and very rapid, right? Because like everybody is going to be taken with the wrong foot if they don't adopt legal tech at the pace that they should, right?
yeah, that's correct. But
Right.
then instead of law firms, legal tech startups that will be
Mhm.
competing. So there's one called, I find really cool, Derecho al Derecho, or there's another one, Pilum, or there's another one, Legal Nova. So they're trying to do things differently. But of course, at Sigma, there's another one. But they don't have the big corporations anyway. They have
Mhm.
the smaller clients that really bet for something different, and that they have the
Right.
economic incentive to make things cheaper. But
Right.
yeah, that's
Okay.
that's
But let's say like there could be a market opportunity there, which is very interesting. Um, Talking about like going out a little bit from the local market, do you see opportunities for collaboration between legal tech innovators in Latin America and other regions, like from Europe or from the US?
Absolutely, absolutely, Pipe. I've been trying to promote that since the very beginning, since I joined the Colombian Legal Tech Association. And so there's the Legal Tech Hub, and there's Legal Hackers, and you have other legal tech associations. And yes, collaborating is essential to
Hmm.
growing. Actually, this kind of conversations,
Yeah,
when I have the opportunity to learn from what's going on in Europe, that's extremely useful to me, and that's extremely useful for the legal techies in
yeah,
Latin
yeah, yeah.
America. So I believe that's that's really what should be done. And I think people in the legal tech world are very, very open to talking to each other.
Mhm.
I the legal tech talk actually in London in I think it was June, and it was amazing what I saw. And what I really liked is that it was not only UK providers. There were
Mhm.
providers all over the world, and there were very high level discussions, and yeah, people looking forward to the future as a sorry as a unity, like as one world, like I think
Mhm.
that's true globalization applied to legal tech.
Wow. Well, I think that we touched upon all sorts of issues. I think that is has been a great conversation. I'm very grateful for your time. And so one last question is, what do you think that 2025 is going to look like from the point of view of legal tech in Latin America?
Well, it's hard to play the futurologist, right? Like you mentioned the word guru, which I believe, I have a lot yet to learn, and legal tech is a new field, right? So you have to
Mhm.
learn all. But if I was going to mention three trends that I notice, I would say the first one is artificial intelligence, AI. It's the hype, and everyone talks about it. Not many people understand it, but many people talk about it. And lawyers, we're very good about speaking like proper know about. But yeah, so AI, it's on the hype, and I think it's extremely useful. But I don't think that's enough. And then if we focus only on AI, we will miss many other opportunities, more simple yet more important for the practice of law. So AI is going to be one of those trends. The second trend I notice is more open minds. That's what I saw since 2024, and I bet there's going to be people. Okay, I want to start new project in 2025. That's going to be my 2025 project. So and then that I can witness from the perspective of my company. So I start to get many projects simultaneously when we're going to finish 2024, and I'm looking forward to many other projects for 2025. So there's this eagerness I mentioned before. It's becoming more concrete. So that's something I like. So that the you can actually get the people to do stuff, not to talk about it. And I would say the third trend, and I'm very positive about this, is that more platformization. So you will get more platforms like multifunctional platforms that will serve many legal purposes. So rather than separate tools, say having an ODR platform like Redec, or what you're doing in at Crispect, that those are things lawyers, companies, public agencies are valuing more and more. Because if you have separate, what I call atomized tools, you don't get enough added value. Sometimes you get a lot of
Mhm.
reprocessing. You have to do things. If you use email, but then you use uh, document software, and then you use also I don't know, Drive to manage your documents, then it's super inefficient and you waste a lot more time that you're trying to save with technology. So having platformized solutions, I think that's
Mhm.
where you want to point out, and that's where a lot of difference can be made.
Wow. Okay. So like tools like Respect that are they're bringing in different the best of the different tools into one platform that you can interact with, so that there you have like a one window into or one access into all these different resources. That's the way to go. Well, I can't say that this is this is a bad note to end on.
You have now to transfer me the $10,000 you offered me for this talk. So please go ahead.
No.
I'm,
Okay.
I'm a true believer. I'm honestly speaking, I was just joking. I'm a true believer in the power of technology,
Mhm.
and how technology can make better lawyers and better justice. But we need to take bold steps. We
Mm-hmm.
cannot be shy about it. And then when you're shy about it, oh, I'm gonna have one AI tool. That's not enough. And then
Right.
you continue to do things, if you do 99% of your work the same way you used to do it 20 years ago, you're not changing anything. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
platforms make a difference. I mean, I'm fully convinced about this. And then
Right.
you really, and that's why I'm in the business of promoting platforms, because I do believe in them.
Wow. Okay, that's very good. Very nice to hear that, and I guess that we can more or less end in this. Nico, thank you very much. Have a great start of this new year of 2025, and I hope that we will see each other quite a lot online and maybe even in person during this year. And yeah, thank you very much for all these insights. And let's hope that legal tech finally gets to be a rocket as it should in Latin America as well.
Speaking of,
Yes, thank you, Nico.
that's
Yeah.
it. Great to see you.
Muchas gracias, muchas gracias.